Good evening and welcome to another instalment of Open Your Mind Internet Radio with myself, Stephen George. Sorry, just want to turn down the volume ever so slightly. Yeah, flying solo this evening. Alan is up in Oldcastle at the event that we spoke of. We've mentioned on the past couple of weeks actually. That is the international medium Mark Impy. So if you didn't get your ticket, well, you're going to miss out on something great. We actually did the pre-recorded interview with Mark on the Friday, just gone, and it seemed like it lasted for about an hour, but it was an hour and 40 minutes we actually squeezed out of Mark, and even when we were finished, we just kept chatting away to him. He's a very interesting chap. He's great stories, great information to tell. I just have some preliminaries to go through. There's no point in giving out the phone number this evening because if you ring in, you won't get through because we're not up in Studio 1 as we like to call it. We're in Studio 2, also known as my back room. But Alan did ask me to mention that he was having some issues with the phone line during the week in Studio 1, Uno, but technical problems. But he says it's all sorted out now, so that's okay. Where will we start? Okay, and we're just gonna go through these notes very, very quickly. Then we're gonna go straight into the interview because we have a surprise this evening. I didn't realise that we were gonna have this lady on, but Kathy Sinnott. We received an email during the week from Joan, and Joan was wondering if we could give Kathy a little bit of airtime because mainstream media is a surprise, but they're not going to give much airtime to what Kathy has to say. So I was just speaking to her on the phone there about 10 minutes ago, and she's all ready. So she's going to be coming on at about 8:45. So first I want to fly through these. Where do we start? We'll start at the beginning. Yes, we received an email during the week from Conrad. Conrad says, "Hi fellow justice seekers, we have a very exciting information-packed open event taking place in a little over 2 weeks' time. It will be coming together of like-minded people who are totally outraged with all that is going on in our system. Banks, alleged debt, courts, justice, tyranny, slavery, being charged for that which falls from the sky, etc. To name but a few of the long list of topics which will be discussed on the day. This event is an open event, open to all who want to come together on this journey of financial freedom." He goes on to say, "If any folks on the land would like to attend this event, please feel free to spread the word. They have limited amount of seats available. The event is going to be £40 sterling, which will include an information booklet and lunch. Where are we? This will also include a discount concession to anyone who wishes to use the restaurant for an evening meal before returning to their accommodation or heading back home." Conrad is sure that this information is of crucial importance, that he wants to bring as many people together as possible. Speaking on the day is going to be Guy Taylor, Roger Hayes, Rob B, Ben Gilroy. I'm guessing there's probably going to be more. He says, "For inquiries about the event and directions or to guarantee a place, please email or private message on Facebook." And the website details are saveyourhome.co.uk. The email is commonlawni@gmail.com, and the Facebook is, facebook.com/common.lawni. Unfortunately, I don't seem to have any more details about the event as to where it's on. So the fact that Ben is going to be speaking at the event, I have just sent a message to Ben, to ask him, can he shed a little bit of light, because there's no point in ringing Alan now because I know he's going to be in the thick of it up in Oldcastle. Anywho, more details as I get them. What else is on the agenda? Yeah, just a couple of things really that I noticed during the week. We spoke that chemtrails, the lack of chemtrails over the past couple of weeks. Well, unfortunately, they're back in Blanchardstown, despite the announcement that we made. So, I'm afraid we kind of had hope that this company who were involved in the chemtrails had gone bust, but unfortunately they don't seem to be. What is next on my week? Yeah, Enda Kenny, seemingly he's made an announcement that a general election will not be held before 2016. Okay. So he's not going to have a general election before 2016. Well, I have a funny feeling that when everyone turns up on the 10th of December at the Dáil, that might shed a little bit of a different light on things. I have a funny feeling there will be a general election, because I believe that his own people are even losing faith in him as well. So I mean, obviously, Enda must be going around wearing earplugs or something. Anyway, what else have I seen? Yeah, on Facebook I noticed during the week that there's I've seen these a couple of times, I'm guessing you have too, surveys asking people if there was a vote in the morning to get out of the EU, would you vote yes or would you vote no? It's an interesting question. I think it's worth considering, because if and when, and hopefully when, we have a direct democracy back in this country, there will be a referendum, and hopefully we will get to decide whether we want to stay in the EU or hightail it out of there. I know it's not just as simple as that, because people might say, oh yeah, we just get out of it. But I think there's a lot more to consider instead of just jumping out. What else? Yeah, that's really it now, because I didn't want to take up too much time. I said I'd just kind of give it 5 minutes into the beginning so I can get the interview, the pre-record out of the way, concentrate, maybe have a bit of a laugh and a bit of banter on the chat, and then once that's over, 8:45 we're going to get Kathy on. So, for your listening pleasure, sit back and relax and listen to the interview that we done with Mark Impy, international medium. Again, as I say, he's actually live in the Oldcastle Spiritual and Healing Centre at this moment in time. They also kicked off at 7 p.m. So Mark is omnipresent. He's going to be like a god now in two places at once. So again, this is Mark Impy, and we'll talk to you after the interview. Take care.
Okay, we'd like to introduce Mark Impy. He's an international medium, and he's just flown over from the UK over in Ireland. He's going to be doing a platform work by the time you hear the show, obviously Mark will be on platform in Oldcastle. Well, obviously we were doing a pre-record with this on Friday, and he's just flown in, and as soon as we came off the plane, we grabbed him, gave him a cup of tea, and pulled him into the studio to get the interview done. Good evening, Mark. How are you doing?
Good evening, Alan.
Thanks a lot for coming in. I know you've a hectic schedule.
Yes.
You're over here for a few days, and so tonight you're doing the recording for OYM. Tomorrow you have a day full of readings to do.
Yeah.
On Sunday you have platform work and a few other things. On Monday you've other spiritual stuff that you're doing which you can't go into.
No.
And then you're going back to Tuesday for a rest.
That's the plan. Basically, yeah.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. Well, it's great having you back on. The last time you were on the show was last year, I think in March, April, when you came on. And for people who, I mean, the podcast is available on OYM. They can obviously download it or go over to the website circleofwhitelight.com to listen to last year's show. But for people who have just kind of woken up or they're just getting involved in the spiritual side and they don't know who you are and they don't know the work of a medium, can you give us a quick bio on who you are and what you do, and then we'll get talking about the mediumship and the spiritual side of things?
Well, I've been a medium for about 11 years now, I should say, 12 years and that. First got interested in it by going to a spiritualist church, I thought, well, maybe there's something to this, And sitting, within the audience, listening to mediums, as they come and take a George, I thought, well, that's general, I kind of dismissed it for a while. But I still get going to the same church, sitting on the same chair in Hayes, Middlesex, in England. And one night, a woman turned up called Lynn. She got on the platform. And I sat there with my mouth open, gobsmacked, listening to all the information she was giving to people. And they were nodding their head through tears, and that. And she gave messages. I thought, wow, what fantastic thing to do, help people. And that's what a medium is, to help people, to bring the two worlds together and to bridge the love between the two worlds, and to prove that there's no such thing as death, that we do go on to another dimension beyond this world. So from that I asked her, did she run a development circle, Lynn? And she said, yeah, give me a phone call tomorrow. So Saturday came along, on the phone for 3 hours nearly, and I thought, this woman thinks the way I think, yet I never thought that people would think that way, that there is an afterlife, that there's more to life than just this as such, As I say, I sat in her circle for a number of years, and she went to live abroad, and asked me would I run her circle, because by then I was running a development circle for mediums myself. So I incorporated her members of her circle into mine. And the rest is history, really. I go all over the country, over England, and obviously to Ireland as well, and here, there and everywhere, and try to help people to bridge the gap, prove that their loved ones are still alive, still with them, and still care for them. I mean, one of the worst things in life is grief.
Yeah.
Once you can, prove that your loved ones are still alive.
And you've had
yes.
your fair share of that.
Yes.
You've experienced quite a lot of that.
I have, yeah. I won't go into it now, but it's quite sad. You know the story as well, as such. But to actually reconnect someone with a loved one in the world of spirit, to let them know that they're fine and life goes on and we meet again one day, is a wonderful thing. And when you know a wonderful story, you don't keep it to yourself. You want to, help other people.
Now, you said that you obviously went in and seen Lynn doing readings, and you thought, what a brilliant way to help people.
Yes.
And does that mean that anybody can go in and become a medium?
Well, I think really mediums are born. You're sensitive. You have a sixth sense and understanding of things that you don't kind of understand, if that makes sense. You can certainly train as a medium. How far you get, I don't know. But I think some of the real big information and evidential mediums are born that way.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But they're not taken away to people who want to actually still see how far they can push their, spiritual development.
So you could have something like, the way I kind of see it would be, from a development point of view, would be that, say you have two professional footballers, right? One would be, give me a professional football, I don't know football, give me a professional footballer.
Oh, cool. Let's get one from my team.
Ronaldo. Say Ronaldo. Say he's well known, very, very, very talented football player, right? Where you might get some other guy who might be a second league. He's still a professional football player, and he's paid professionally doing what he's doing, but he'll never be Ronaldo. No.
Some football players are natural-born athletes and natural-born footballers.
Yeah.
Others, are in between, there's obviously varying degrees of things like that, but to be born sensitive, to get hurt easy, to feel people's pain, to be empathic and caring towards other people, is a natural ingredient of mediumship, most definitely.
Steve?
Would it be fair to say, though, Mark, that people who are born like that we're all born like that? Would that be a fair thing to say? And then over the course of time, we forget who we are or what we are, our capabilities?
Well, you certainly lose the focus of mediumship as time goes on. You get corrupted by the world, materialism, and you just push it aside. A lot of people are naturally clairvoyant when they're young. They see an apparition of Grandad.
That's actually where I was going, because I know they say a lot of children.
You must be psychic.
Good one.
No, because I remember hearing before they say that a lot of children, before the age of 5, they have these gifts, they have these abilities.
Yeah. And obviously we know when they look at the picture of Grandad, say they've seen that person, Grandad may have died years before they were born, and the mother points out that, that's your Grandad, as such, in that photograph. And, so you do become unattuned.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if you're with parents who are not open-minded and they keep saying, "Oh, don't be silly, you're seeing things and all that," then obviously you would start shutting things down.
Well, of course, it instills fear in you.
Yeah.
You naturally come from spirit, and you are spirit within the human body, experiencing the earth life. Once that knowledge is driven out of you, then you live in fear. I can't say that because Mummy will tell me off.
Yeah.
So the shutters come down, basically.
And what about people who wake up to it late in life? Because there's a few people I've come across who all of a sudden it's been as if somebody's flicked a button and it's been reactivated.
It's often a catalyst, a trigger within life that starts them on that journey. They may have had to go through many years in their life, perhaps experiencing grief, pain, just to empathise and understand. Or, it's like when you join the army, they break you and remake you, you come out a man. Going a boy.
Yeah.
That's the best analogy to use with that, in that the life lessons you learn are important for mediumship, and it can't be rushed. It's rather, I always use the analogy with my students that if you jump on a fast express train, you'll miss all the scenery going past and the station names. If you jump on a slow diesel train, perhaps, you You're travelling slowly and you see everything going past, you take it all in, you take in the name of stations, the experience. So mediumship is a lifelong learning, and even beyond that, you can't rush it. And sadly these days, a lot of people tend to go to a couple of workshops, hire a hall, print cards and flyers and that, and the next big Colin Fry or something.
Yeah.
It takes a lifetime sitting in development circles and through life experience. It really does.
Okay, and obviously you've came across people that have rang you up and said, I want to be the next Colin Fry or Tony Stockwell, can I join your circle? And what's your take on that?
Well, I've actually had people within the circle, but you are what you are, as long as you serve in spirit. It's not about me and stardom and everything else, and I'm not saying, Colin and people like that are in it for that. They're in it to help people, and they're damn good mediums. They really are, and but just the way it is these days in this society. But it can't be learnt overnight. You can't become a Bruce Lee within 2 months.
Exactly. In
that analogy, you study for a lifetime, that art.
But I come across mediums who, for me anyway, it's all about intent. And
Yes.
I've come across mediums that have the wrong intent, and they're looking at, well, I need to get 5 readings in this week to pay my mortgage, rather than using the skill in why they were given it in the first place, or why they have it in the first place, to actually help people. Because if you approach it that way, then the readings will come in.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we got to live in this world, so, you've got to earn, and plus you're giving of your time, I don't really charge, to be honest, as such, but the intent, the morals, the ethics, etc., is to help other people, to help people through grief, to be an ambassador of the world of spirit as such, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And so your intentions, spirit will read your heart, they know what your intentions are,
Exactly, yeah.
etc. So they will, look at your heart and think, well, is this person going to be, exploiting other people?
Which is we had Dr. Joseph Cipollone on a couple of weeks ago, and he's talking about that. And we have talked before about service to others rather than service to self.
Yes.
And that's what the whole intent, service to others, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And, if you are genuinely want to help somebody, then that's the right intent. But if you're doing it for other reasons or selfish reasons, then obviously it's not going to work for you.
I mean, ego does kick in. It really does kick in, and you've got to be so careful of it. But ego in a milder form, it helps you survive. Does that make sense?
Well, ego is part of us. We can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
But what I always say is, look, if you want to kind of, massage your ego, go into a bedroom on your own, stand in front of the mirror and go, I am brilliant, and then close the door on the way out, and then pack your ego away again.
Yeah.
Because obviously being somebody involved in the music business, I'm familiar with that kind of, and how, people, and we've said before on the show when we had John Anthony Hill on, the whole idea of life is to move away from ignorance and ego and move towards humility and wisdom.
Oh yes, most definitely. I mean, real mediumship is about a two-way thing. Spirit can't work without you, and you can't work without spirit. And I often say, before I do a spiritualist church or going on platform, stage, or whatever it is, I was do a prayer and say, okay, guys, it's yours. I hand it over to you. To my guides, of course, who work with me, spirit guides, they assist as such, And in that way, you take your personality out of it. You're just an open channel.
Yeah.
To connect to your free-flowing open channel without any blockage. Once you start putting yourself into it a lot, then you can damage that flow, the free flow, because you start bringing things in like ego, I could have done this, I could have done that, etc. sort of thing. It's not what it's all about, really,
And of course, we've both come across something called, which I came across when you were teaching me, was spiritual jealousy.
Oh, yes. I had that once and I almost gave it up. But I went to a Slough Spiritualist church, and a medium would come up to me. I was sitting in the waiting room outside drinking a cup of tea. She said, don't worry about the green eye monster. It's their lesson to learn. Get on with your development. Now, this woman knew nothing about that. She knew nothing about me. Yet Spirit, through her, gave a message to me to say, not give up. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been through some really hard times. It's broken me and remade me. The person and the medium and the man I am today. all through those experiences, those hard experiences. And many a time I said to Spirit, I give up, I've had enough. You pushed me too far.
Yeah.
Yet my faith has, led me on. And it's not about me, it's about me being of use to Spirit, to serve Spirit, to help people.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's selfless, I suppose, in that way,
Yeah. But they will push you and they will test you.
Spirit will.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to work for us, to see what you're made of.
Yeah, yeah.
You're this sort of person now, we need to break you and make you into this sort of person, ready for what we got planned for you in the future.
And I've seen that over and over again, I've seen that. Yeah, totally. Now, the one thing that, in the truth movement, there's a lot of people that are awake to what's going on, but they only see or seem to see just the physical side.
Yes.
And they think that the mediumship thing is all new agey mumbo jumbo, blah blah blah. Now, I know there are people out there that are kind of into an awful lot of the new age stuff, but since I've known you and you've been involved in it, although you understand and accept the other stuff, you've always said to me, the bare bones of mediumship is to give somebody a reading and tell them something that you wouldn't possibly know. And you have principles and ethics which you apply to that. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, the ethics is being truthful. My old teacher Lynn always used to say to us, if you stand up giving a message and nothing else comes through, put your hand up and say, there's nothing else come through, sit down. Because people will hang on your word. And if you start making things up and they do something, well, one, it's unethical, and two, it could lead them into some danger or hard times.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's all about. It's about helping people. Really, mediumship boils down to proving evidence of survival. Not that you got a red Indian guide, that's not evidence of survival. But Auntie Joan here, she died aged 72. She tells me she was knocked over on a zebra crossing, and at a funeral it absolutely pelted down rain. Yesterday she saw you go into Tesco's, leave your keys behind in there, come out and go back in to get them again. The reason being is because she saw you, and she's relaying it to me as evidence. Yes, that's all true.
That's it. And you, obviously, the principles that you go by is CERT, which is certify, evidence, reason, and terminate.
Definitely.
And there's no point if a medium turns around, which I've seen, and they say, "Oh, I have a person here with grey hair." That's very vague, isn't it?
Yeah. Or the other one, can anyone take the Georgian spirit or Mary? When I've had an Aunt George, I've had an Aunt Mary. I think a lot of other people have. And about 12 hands come out up in the air, sort of thing, And the medium has to whittle it down to one person. That's not. It's a lazy way of working.
So if the medium said, right, I have a relative here, it's George, grey hair, 4 medals, a pipe, wooden leg, that pretty much whittles it down to one person.
It's going in the right direction, but a lot of mediums, like myself and others, will know where they're going to in the audience.
Straight away.
They feel that either the portal's that person, or they may see a light above that person, things like that, Madam, I'd like to come to you over there, lady in the black top.
Yeah.
You'd understand a gentleman who would have passed to the world of spirit, age 62. He's given me the name Daniel, and he tells me that he worked in a rubber factory. Yes, that's my uncle. Simple as that. That's just an example. It's a made-up example.
Yeah.
But it's what it's all about. It's proving the evidence of survival. You are basically the mouthpiece for spirit. You're the telephone from heaven.
You're a conduit, and and it goes through that, Steve.
Mark, when you spoke there earlier about Joan forgetting her key, or Auntie Joan noticing that the lady went into Tesco and forgot her keys, and she witnessed this, is it possible for, let's say, Auntie Joan who died on the zebra crossing, for her to influence or to send a message to the lady who forgot her keys, and maybe that's why she went back in to get her keys, because she received a message from spirit? Or can spirit only work through mediums?
I think there's varying degrees, really. I mean, some people, the thought comes into their mind, where did that come from?
So that could be Auntie Joan.
Yeah, but to take it further, to really be disciplined with it, you need to develop as a medium properly.
Well, this is one of the things. You get natural mediums, as you say, born, but it's like getting somebody who's a talented singer, but needs the rough edges
carved off. Yeah.
And they join what's called a development circle. And in the development circle, they'll be taught what's happening and why it's happening and how to understand and how to interpret it.
Most definitely, yeah. Like that singer, it takes time to knock the edges off that, the bad habits learned and things like that, so it takes time to not the end product, but get to near enough to the end product as such,
Yeah, and of course the development circle is exactly what it is. It's a development circle. If you could go into a circle and get messages all the time accurately, then that means it wouldn't really be called a development circle, it'll be called a circle.
Yeah.
So what people have to understand is when they join a development circle, that they are there to develop.
Yes.
And if they don't understand something, it's just they have to understand their link between their guide and themselves and what their guide is giving you.
I mean, the key to it all is understanding your spirit guides.
Getting to know them.
Get to know them, definitely, and what they're there for, as such. That they work between you and the contacting spirit on the other side, they're really the channel. Between the medium and the contacting spirit for the lady sitting down there in the audience, for instance,
So, and obviously we had Dr. Joseph on. I know we refer to Dr. Joseph because some of the information is very good. And one of the things that I said to him off air was, where do you think mediums get the information from to pass on? And he said to me that he feels that it comes from the Akashic records, that information is passed on to the medium. And then you pass on that information to the person. So if that's the case, well, I mean, that doesn't matter really, does it?
Well, the Akashic records are life records, and everything's recorded you've ever done and going to do. So that may refer to things like predictions. But with predictions in the world of spirit, when they say soon, you think, well, it's next week. But, for myself, it took me 6 years for something to happen to me. It was predicted. And it took roughly 6 years to come and manifest to be what it was, so things like that. But
okay. So basically, the other thing that Dr. Joseph said, which I thought was quite interesting, was that he said, as you go through dimensions, time speeds up. So to what we might feel like, you said 6 years, to them it might be only 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, they can see it happening. You're in that situation. I mean, don't get me wrong, you could be in a situation where the prediction comes true and you don't want it.
Yeah.
You've got free will where to turn away from it and reject it.
But mediums aren't fortune tellers, are they?
No. Spirit can see things coming up. There's no time. There's no past or future in the world of spirit. And the information that comes through from a loved one in spirit wouldn't come from the Akashic records. That spirit person has been around their relatives seeing what they've been doing. So they relay it back through the medium who gives it to the person sitting in the audience, their loved one, as such. And so that's what it's all about, basically.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. Well, that was Dr. Joseph's opinion on it. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but he just happened to say that.
I mean, really, those in the world of spirit are luckier than us because they can come into our dimension without any worry. We don't know they're there, or we may just feel their presence around us, but they're, just there with their love visiting.
Yeah.
And caring for us and things like that. And, talking about our lives. And also their memories that they once shared with us. I mean, for instance, can you understand Auntie Joan is saying that when you went to Southend, you got stuck in the mud and you had to be dug out. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because she was there at the time.
Yeah.
She laughed her head off about it. But, that's just
and that's great evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good, especially when you pick something like that. Now, obviously, there's still people who are going to be listening and think it's all mumbo-jumbo and it's all kind of, new age stuff. But, I've personally experienced some of this as well.
Yeah.
So, and I can definitely say from experience, there's more to just the physical world. But you're going to have your Darren Browns and you're going to have your Keith Barrys out there. And they don't believe any of this. And they just feel that it's all kind of, people are mediums are doing readings, body language and all that kind of stuff. So, what's your take on them?
Well, obviously they make good living out of it, don't they? Debunking everything. But the research I've read that they've done hasn't really been very deep. I mean, take for instance the Skull Report. Have you heard of that?
No.
Well, it was a report where 4 people got together in 1993, an investigation team led by the late Monty Keane. They embarked on a 5-year study into life after death and the paranormal. Yeah. The investigation was mainly concerned with physical mediums, trance, mediumship, apports and apparitions, etc. Indeed, the Skull Group investigation was to gain evidence of independence from the medium, as such, the existence of intelligent beings or life forces, which can contact through their messages. Yeah. Concerning these life forms, the Skull experiment was about spirit beings' influences on material objects as well. Now we go into the realms of what we call physical circles.
Okay. And do you want to explain what a physical circle is?
Yes, definitely. A physical circle, years and years ago, especially between the two wars after the First World War, it became very fashionable to hold seances in rooms, where loved ones would come through who were killed in the war and contacted their mothers or fathers or whoever, and that. But largely this practice has fizzled out. I mean, the last 80 to 50 years, that's when it was really in its heyday, as such, and that. One of the biggest, most well-known mediums doing that was Helen Duncan, who was imprisoned under the Witchcraft Act, where she held a séance in April 1944, and one of the sailors from HMS Barham actually manifested in the room and said that Barham had been sunk and that he was one of the victims on the ship, HMS Barham, the destroyer. Now, sitting in the séance was his mother, believe it or not. And out of worry, fear and concern, she contacted the Admiralty. Now, obviously, this wasn't knowledge yet. The government hadn't released the news that HMS Barham had been sunk. So, cut a long story short, Helen Duncan was arrested, charged under the mediumship, false mediumship, Witchcraft Act, and was imprisoned, etc. sort of thing.
Okay.
So, and during the Skull report, she actually produced an report of the Daily Mail on the 1st of April 1944 with a news story of her on the front. It just materialised in the room. She was helping the Skull Group as such with this apportation. Now, the newspaper was actually tested. It was taken to the organisation that does research into newspapers and things like that. And the print was actually letterhead that had been disused for a long, long time. So it wasn't modern print as such. And they went to the British Library and found a copy of it. It was an early run of that day, that newspaper. So that's one of the things Helen Duncan in spirit had produced, an apportation in the Skull Group.
Wow.
Now, the Skull Group was actually in the village of Skull in Norfolk.
Okay.
Up north in England sort of thing, and they actually did quite a few experiments. They brought a magician in, I think his name was James Webster. He sat in 3 seances, and his conclusion at the end of the day was this couldn't have been reproduced by magicians or any form of trickery. Now, James, as I said, had been a magician for 40 years, and he knew all the tricks of the old mediums doing, certain, trickery and things like that, not the genuine ones.
The illusions and all. Illusions, normally do,
yeah. Like someone with a long stick moving the curtains.
Yeah, exactly,
like that, But his thoughts on it, his conclusion on it, as he actually saw it and witnessed it, it can't be reproduced.
So, if Keith Barry and Darren Brown actually did proper investigations and they realised that themselves, that he came out and said, right, this is actually true and it does happen, then that would affect their bottom line, really, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, no money flow anymore.
Exactly. So it's in their interest to debunk mediums.
Yes. I mean, I read an article in the newspaper in that they reckon that mediums turn up to great halls and they go around the crowd listening to people's conversations and they get wired up and everything like that. Now, I've gone to halls and not known anyone.
Which is what's going to happen on Sunday for you. Which is tonight if people are listening to the show in Ireland.
In Ireland. As such sort of thing, And coming to people and bringing things through that people start crying, you think, well, you've hit a nerve.
Yeah.
And it's got to be accurate. And they're saying, yes, that's true, that happened, and da-da-da-da-da.
Well,
and that date is right, yes, that's true.
I've been to your shows. And I know you don't know the people in the audience, because if people don't know you, obviously they'd be suspicious, or they don't know a medium. And, I suppose the listeners don't really know me, but at the end of the day, Steve knows me.
I know you.
And you're as honest as the day is long.
That's right.
I know you as well.
Yeah, Mark knows me as well. And I've been in the audience, and I've seen you do that, you know. And, but let's just, let's not say all mediums are genuine. I mean, there are the charlatans out there. We have to talk about that.
Well, as Mark, have you said you're doing this 11 years? You're developing for the past 11 years, so,
Yeah, unfortunately, Mark hasn't spent, 5 or 6 years in university studying body language and illusions and the magic schools and all that. Maybe that's what, Keith Barry and Darren Brown have been doing, and that's how they can do what they can do, because they've spent all that time studying. Mark, unfortunately, hasn't been down that road, so guess what? He has to rely on spirit.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you were saying, I mean, definitely, it's all about evidence of survival. Survival after physical death. And as there are eggs, you get the charlatan here, there and everywhere, and when there's money involved of exploiting people and doing some body reading.
And people are vulnerable when you go for readings, don't they? Yes,
definitely. I mean, but I couldn't do that because I have a moral belief as such, to help people.
So,
and many other mediums do as well.
Okay, so if you do a reading and somebody says to you, yeah, it's not really like, I'm not really happy with that. I mean, ethically, you would actually not charge that person then?
Well, I don't really charge anyway, generally.
Right, okay. Because the one thing that I'd like to approach with this is the fact that there are people out there who I've come across as well, I'm sure you have, is that they get involved in the spiritual side. They have a little bit of an awakening, and they get involved in the spiritual side, and they go right over to the far side, and they kind of have there's a self-righteous bit going on. And they say, oh no, I'm doing this for spirit and I don't charge and I'm not going to charge anybody. Now, as you said, if your plumbing goes, you'll call a plumber, you have to pay him. If your electricity goes, you'll call an electrician. And, and you're paying for their knowledge and their time.
Even if an electrician comes out and it's only a fuse.
Yeah.
You still have to pay him.
You still have to pay him, right? So, you live in the 3D world, you have to pay the rent, you have to eat food, and you're giving up your time. Now, I do find that if you're charging an honest price for a reading, that's fine. I think when people start charging 100 plus and all that, I think that's ego, and I think that's too much. But if you're charging, a decent price for doing a reading because you are taking the time to sit down with somebody, then I think that's reasonable to say. Now, some people might disagree with me, but to be honest with you, we have to live down here. And if you are a full-time professional medium and doing readings, that's your job.
Well, those mediums that do charge for it obviously are charging for their time and professionalism as such, So therefore, but you are right. I mean, there have been cases where, like, people have been charged, say, £100 for half an hour's reading, and somebody rings a bell outside and the medium stops mid-sentence. Sorry, that's it, finished.
Exactly, yeah. Or do you have a clock beside them and it's like countdown. Okay, next.
I mean, when doing readings on one-to-ones, if it continues over an allotted time, you just carry on to a point, because you're there as the channel to give that message. And Spirit's only got, say, that half an hour or an hour window to give their message to their loved one.
And a lot of the time, I mean, I know you're booked in for readings tomorrow, and you have so many readings to do, and they are all timed to a certain extent. But, if
it goes over 10 minutes, so be it. But, it could be the most crucial part of that message within the last 10 minutes. And it also has to be wrapped up as well, as such.
And I would kind of put a challenge out there to anybody who thinks that if they are a skeptic, is to go for a reading. Go and have a reading and go to a good medium. And if they can tell you something that they wouldn't possibly know, then you have to ask yourself.
It's usually on good recommendation as well, or if you actually sit in an audience in a spiritualist church. And I like that medium, he's really coming forward with some lovely information for everyone and all nodding yes. Then you've got a really good medium to go and sit and listen to in a private reading, one-to-one.
Well, a lady we know over in the UK, I'll just say her first name, Leslie.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of got interested in the subject. And Leslie was just a neighbour And she came around one day and we got talking, and she just happened to say that she was a medium. And she said, "Do you want me to do a reading for you?" This was impromptu, it wasn't planned. And I said, "Yeah, okay, go ahead," being a skeptic head on, And she came out and just told me stuff that I didn't know about family.
Yeah.
Right?
How would she know?
How would she know? And I said, "Well, I don't know." So I had to ring my family in Ireland at the time, because I was living in London, and to ask them, and they confirmed what she said. So I didn't even know that until they confirmed it.
I had a similar situation when I served Spiritualist Church way over, in Berkshire, I think it was. Can't remember the name of it at this moment in time. But the lady running the church said, "I've got a message for you from your mother." Talking about Elizabeth on her side, I thought, well, that's Mum's name. Grandma's name, Elizabeth Betty. And Arthur on your dad's side. Oh, don't know any Arthur's on dad's side. Anyway, she gave me the reading. I went back. I went round to my dad's a few days later. I said, "Do you know an Arthur?" "Oh, that was your uncle Arthur, who was in the army. He joined in 1930, God knows what, and was a professional soldier." Now, I never knew of the existence of this fella, Arthur, as an ancestor of mine.
Yeah.
Until I asked my dad post.
So, technically, what you could be used for as well as a medium, maybe, is people who are trying to track down the ancestry. I mean, you might get some information through that way. Would that be possible?
Possibly, yeah. Obviously, it happened to me, I didn't know who this fella was as such until I asked my dad a few days later,
Yeah, because I know there's people out there who are into genealogy, and they do want to track their family and everything else.
Yeah.
And they have an interest in that. And then if they have some questions that they weren't answered and they can't find the information, well, maybe, now there's no guarantee, obviously.
Oh,
but
no.
There's never a guarantee with it, but, asking the question won't do any harm if you go for reading.
It's like the old story that mediums call up the dead. They don't. The dead, so-called dead, come to us, You may go for a reading and you want your mother through, yet your dad comes through.
Exactly.
They choose to come through.
Yeah, exactly. Steve?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Mark, there's actually a member of my family, my father, and his mother died when he was about, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years of age. He knows nothing really of his mother, and he spent... He's 73 years of age now. He spent kind of a lot of time in and out of different places trying to find information, and there's no living relatives alive, and he's just basically, he's given up now at this point in time. If he was to go and see either yourself or a good recommended medium, would it be possible that with his intent, would that be enough to draw a spirit there?
I think it's rather put luck with that, as such, who comes through, who gives the information,
Yeah.
I mean, I've on the rare occasion I've sat and got a message, I've often gone back to my dad and I knew nothing about things, and he said, yeah, that happened, for instance, that my grandmother on my mother's side worked in a market on a fish stall. And I didn't know that. Dad told me, yes, she did.
Yeah. And that's great confirmation. Well, maybe. I mean, this is the thing as well, I think. There's no guarantee, really, is there? I mean, it's not, you can't pick up the phone and go, I want to speak to this relative, because they have to want to come through themselves.
Yes, definitely. That they got something to say to you, so they choose to come forward. Doesn't mean, that if Dad doesn't come through for a long time, he doesn't love you, because we know there's no time in spirit. And to them it's just like yesterday they talked to you. Or they need to come through at a specific time because you're going through a certain ordeal or something, and they're giving you a bit of guidance, things like that. Who needs the message gets the message. In the church as such.
It'll get through.
In that way.
Now, this is the first time you're doing platform work over here in Ireland. You've been over here before, but obviously it's your first time doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great to see that there's more and more a kind of spiritual centres opening up here in Ireland for visiting mediums to come over and do shows. I mean, so if people are out there and they have any places that are set up spiritually and you want mediums to visit, it's great, because over in the UK we know there's churches and centres everywhere. Now, I'm not a fan of the word spiritual church.
Yeah, centres, a lot of them call
centres, because, connotations of religion. Obviously, there are people who are probably from the religious side who think that the work that you do is the work of the devil and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, the messages come through with so much love. So the devil must have a lot of love if it is so. No, you know, I mean, you go back to religion, you know, Jesus sort of thing, you know, we were involved with healers and things like that. A lot of mediums are healers. He was touched and he felt the energy go out of his clothes, you know, because somebody wanted healing. He gave predictions. By the time the cockle crows 3 times, Peter, you would have denied me 3 times. So obviously that's a prediction. You know, we work in love and light. We work within the light. We work for goodness. And if we're doing goodness, that isn't the devil's work.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. You know, if it's a positive and it helps somebody in a positive way, then how can it be a negative?
Can't be, no.
It's only if you get information through. I mean, let's say, for example, you know, over in America, they actually sell Ouija boards as a game. And
they did in this country, Parker's, I think it was. Or Parker's or something like that.
Now, I think it's important that we clarify certain tools of the trade that mediums use, the likes of crystals, tarot cards, Ouija boards, but not we as mediums. I don't think we would call them we don't call them an Ouija board, we call it a spirit board.
Yeah.
Because again, it goes back to your intention. And I know there's mediums out there, and they might be listening to the show, and you go, oh no, you don't want to be doing that, that's the work of the devil. Again, you have the fear thing. And as we always say, if you understand fear, it stops being a fear.
Yeah.
So, although you are kind of a person who will say, develop your psychic ability, and give information through spirit for people, you can accept that there's tools out there that mediums will use. Do you want to expand on these tools?
Well, yeah, you're not actually developing your psychic ability, you're developing your spiritual ability as a medium, because you are a spirituous medium. Now, a psychic will use things like auras around your body, read from that, things coming in, going out of your body, you know, through the auric field as such, you know. Whereas a spirituous medium will actually get a message from Auntie Flo or Auntie Joan sort of thing, you know, like we explained earlier on as such. Now, the tools that we can use, because as a medium you can be a psychic, but generally as a psychic you can't be a spirituous medium, or you may have varying degrees of it, but not the whole bag as such.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, you know, as such. Now, I use tarot cards. I don't use them in the conventional way. I will ask someone to pick out 3 tarot cards facing downwards. Take your time, pick them out one by one. Place them downwards in front of me in order. And each card represents phases of their life. You'd have their past, their present, and their near future. And using my 6th sense psychic abilities, intuition, call it what you will, they get a reading from those. Okay? With Spirit Board, if it's done properly, and I emphasise properly.
Done properly, know what you're doing.
Yep. A prayer to God. But only those that come forward in the love and in the light are there. And then closing it afterwards in the same kind of way, that there are no vortexes open, no doors open, that anything can come through. Closing, and work only in love and light. Then it's just another tool. Now, school children often say, let's do Spirit Board tonight.
Let's do a Ouija board, because they wouldn't call it Spirit Board.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's Spirit Board. Yeah. So in they go, pull the curtains, you know, their sort of knees are knocking because they're scared, and they put down the letters and get the glass out and that sort of thing. Is there anybody there? Of course there is.
Yeah. Any
type of spirit is there, good, bad or indifferent, you know. And they don't close it, they don't open it with the proper procedure. So anything will turn up.
So what the kids are doing is they have a telephone book and they're making a phone call and hoping the guy on the other end is a nice person.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Right. Yeah. And chances are they're not, because they're not properly protected.
No. So that's just another tool. I mean, pendulum would be a tool as well. Pendulum work.
Crystals,
Crystals, to a degree, you know. And a lot of it is intuition, but going back to tarot cards, you can actually learn what the cards mean. You know, say if the death card was pulled out, it just means changes are happening and coming around you, things like that, you know. Doesn't mean you're going to kick the bucket next week, you know.
Yeah. No, people get concerned when you see something like that, all right.
And they can be topped by other cards to give them further meaning, you know, as such. So that's my understanding of those, but primarily I work just with spirit.
Yeah, because
as a spirituous medium, but I have psychic abilities.
Okay, so let's define the difference between a psychic and a spiritual medium.
Right. As I said, a psychic will read from tools like that using their 6th sense.
Oh, so it's clairvoyance, is it?
Clairvoyance is seeing.
Yeah, okay.
It's probably feeling more than anything. Yeah.
Okay, just a feeling and a knowing.
A feeling and a knowing sort of thing. Or they will use tarot cards in a conventional way, which this card means this and that card means that, so therefore this will happen and that will happen so far, and things like that, and what have you. A spirituous medium, through the spirit guides who work in love and light, will get a connection to your Aunt Joan. She will come through, giving through information about you, about your past memories together, that you dropped a box of eggs this morning. Things like that, because she was standing around you, and she would give you a little bit of guidance, things of the past, things of the present, and possibly future.
Now, let's think about that. If our listeners, if they went to a medium, and the medium turned around to them and said something like, yeah, this morning you had a box of eggs, you were in the kitchen, and you dropped them on the floor.
Right.
I mean, I think that's pretty good. I mean, you'd want to be pretty good to know that somebody dropped eggs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's really, to turn around and to be that accurate. And even if you turn around, oh yeah, and it was a 6-pack of eggs, not 12-pack. I mean, I think,
And that's the messages that I get and other mediums get. I mean, one of the most funniest ones was doing a spiritualist church, and I probably said this before last year on the radio. I saw a tin of Winalot, or chum, and a pie, and I associated them both together. Madam, did you give someone a dog food pie? Yes. My old man, because he upset me. That was the words. And all of a sudden the words came through into my head, and he had more. And he come back for more, madame, didn't he? He went bright red and said, yes, he did. He loved it.
Brilliant.
So little funny things like that come through, But it's facts.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah. The way Auntie Joan might have been there, Mark, and she noticed you dropped the eggs. Is Auntie Joan with you all the time? Like, would the spirit be there all the time? Would the spirit move on to another family member, or how long do they hang around for? Like, if let's say if there was a spirit here now beside me, is it with me all the time or only part time?
Well, let's put it this way. When they were upon the earth, your grandma would visit you, or Aunt Joan would visit you here and there, sort of thing. So they're not with you all the time. They do go and see other family members, or they got things to do themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like a visit from grandma.
Because, there's sometimes, I mean, I'm sure there's people listening now tonight who kind of, they might be a little bit freaked out to think that they could be doing something later with a loved one, and, Auntie Bessie could be in the background watching.
Well, I'm sure they always stay outside the toilets.
Yeah, I think it's a given, maybe, that they wouldn't kind of,
They're not really interested in things like that, They're just... you could be in a situation when you're having a bit of bad luck and you're a bit down, and your loved ones could turn up in spirit. And I can give an example of that, actually seeing my grandma sitting on the settee across the settee I was sitting on when I was going through a very hard time, and she was there for about 10 seconds, something like that, just disappeared, and dressed in a flowered dress. Now, every reading I've had from a medium where my grandma has come through, they always describe her dressed in a flowered dress. So she is giving it that credence in the later messages that I actually saw her in a flower dress, and she presents herself to the mediums in a flower dress later.
Yeah.
See, it's a common theme all the way through.
Now, here's a question that seems to come up quite a lot. People say that when relatives pass over, or somebody passes over, do they keep their own personality? Do they remain the same?
Yes.
Right, so somebody who was negative, would they be negative over there?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the story with people moving to the light? I mean, because we've heard Dr. Joseph, and we had James Gilliland on the show, and a couple of other people, and they talk about negative energies and negative people and all that. How does that work out?
Well, I can actually describe a situation where I've been recently involved with trying to get someone. Well, we actually succeeded in getting the lady into the world of spirit. I was invited by Natalie Josephs, who runs Green Hearts, which is a wonderful organisation, to go to a pub in Hertfordshire. We've done some readings there, like show format as such. And there was a paranormal team called Spooks of Hertfordshire who were there to investigate with us, because the CCTV in the pub picked up paranormal activity. After time, the place was renovated, and knocking down a wall, the workmen found the remains of a woman walled up in the wall. It was dated roughly 200 years old, the remains as such.
Mm.
Now, watching the Paranormal group after we did the readings, they were showing one of the machines and what they use, and EVP things, which were very accurate and quite clear. That's the right word, as such. Now, they asked me, would I go into the bar area with them and do an opening prayer of protection, and they brought this machine with them that actually spirit can talk through. It can manipulate it, because it's got 500 words vocabulary built into the machine. And there's lights that light up on top.
I've seen that on Ghost Hunters. They had a similar thing, yeah.
Yeah. It spells a word and the metallic voice comes forward from the machine and talks, says the word sort of thing. As soon as we walked into the bar area, after I did the opening prayer protection, I sat down and someone tapped me on the right shoulder 3 times with a hard prodding finger. Looked behind me, nobody was there. All of a sudden, all the lights in the bar area started strobing and flashing, the ceiling lights, lamps, etc., and that sort of thing. And it was absolutely crazy in there. So we all decided to actually go around to the little bar area around the back where the woman's body was holed in. And Natalie was working with me to help this woman to get over to the world spirit. And she was standing by the wall, and all of a sudden there was scratchings coming from inside the wall and slight taps sort of thing, tapping. I was put into trance, and I was overwhelmed with such a feeling of hurt, guilt, sadness as this woman transfigured over me and spoke through me. And it turned out that her husband killed her. His name was Adam in 1911, and she was walled up. And they actually, as I said, did some research on the remains, and they're roughly 200 years old as such. So anyway, we passed her over into the world of spirit. She was earthbound into the light. As soon as that happened, and I come back out of trance, this little voice thing said, "Thank you."
Very good.
It was actually filmed.
So the movie Ghost is pretty good, because they talk about, moving over to the light, and obviously negative energies don't want to do that because they feel there's going to be repercussions when they do that.
Well, negative energy is a big word. I mean, you could love your house and you want to stay in it, because that's where you feel comfortable, after you die. And, it's like the old lady, you move into her house, she died 5 years ago. You put the flowers over there, but she always had them over there. You go out the room, you come back and they're over the other side.
Yeah.
And things like that. So it can be trapped in that way, or traumatic situation of death. Like the film Ghost, he's thrown out of his body, where am I, and often when spirit want to make contact, it's not the mad axe murderer in your room that's doing the tapping on the wall, it's just, please hear me, acknowledge me.
Yes, but that's what I've experienced.
And
that
it's the
myself,
same frustration as the fella in the film Ghost. He's trying to contact his hands going through until he meets the wacky medium Whoopi Goldberg. Things are put into motion then.
And I think people need to understand that sometimes ghost, but spirit want to communicate. They want to get your attention, and you will notice little things. That happened to me. That's really how it started for me. Really, was that when I was living in London, I was getting a tap on the wall. And obviously you came around and you said, there's 2 spirits in the house. And then we
gin and whiskey.
we sorted it out from there.
I did.
We did, both did. But that was interesting. But people will say that I feel I have something in the house and I don't want to hear it. There's a spirit, there's an uneasiness. What do you recommend they do if they feel that?
Well, obviously contact a good spiritualist church who would recommend someone who can go around there. And
we're in Ireland, mate. We don't have churches.
Well, bring me up. But going more into the paranormal thing, I actually run a physical circle. I've been doing it since April, as meeting of friends every Tuesday, and we had a few results, similar to Skull. Not so much. I mean, it takes ages sitting within a physical circle for proper paranormal activity to take place.
Because the energy
has to be built up, And that's what happened with the Skull report people, 4 or 5 of them, what they were. It took them 5 years. Now, typically, in a fully developed physical circle, you'd have cones or trumpets flying around the room, stopping in front of the face of the person sitting down within the circle, and talking through the cone. Spirit entities, discarnate. You'd have apparitions, solid form spirit, ectoplasm, from the medium's
which
mouth.
Is very rare these days, because the discipline they had years ago was phenomenal compared to today.
The 80 or 50 years ago, roughly they were in their heyday physical circles, like we spoke about earlier on. Apportations like a stone drops from the ceiling, or a toy car is on the table when you turn the lights on that wasn't there before. It's been taken from somewhere else and moved there. Which spirit can do. You put your keys down and they're always moving them around the house. That kind of scenario. You've often. Do
you think that's what it is? When people go, where did I leave my keys, or where did I leave this? And you think, well, I don't remember leaving it there.
You put them there.
Yeah.
Because you put them there every time. You definitely know you put them there, yet they're upstairs.
Yeah.
By the side of your bed, and you haven't done that.
Yeah.
Or nobody else has done that in the house.
Yeah.
You live alone, perhaps.
But is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Just playing games, really.
Playing games, okay.
But with physical circles, within ours we've had coldness. Temperature actually drops in a central heated room. It's freezing in this sort of thing, And it's done in darkness. And people have been touched by hands. Not circle members' hands, but spirits' hands and things like that. Recently it just got darker and darker and darker in the room. Now, when you sit in the room for a long time, your eyes get adjusted and you start to see a bit more light, sort of thing. But the last physical circle that we had, it just got darker and darker and colder and colder and colder. We started seeing flashes of light travelling across the room, things like that. Involves trance work, when certain members of the group are put into trance. And recently we had a fella coming through who was a navigator in the RAF. He said that he flew within a Lancaster bomber. And he gave the squadron number. They actually flew out of Lincolnshire. And a few other bits and bobs, later on, a couple of days later, we got on the old internet, typed it all in, and the squadron number did exist in Lincolnshire, and actually flew Lancaster bombers from their airstrip as such. So that was verified after the trance,
That's a good evidence.
Squadron number as well,
Now, in 2006, you came over and you did a TV series. We don't really know what happened to the production team or the company who did it, but basically Mark come over here and he worked with another well-known medium over here called Colette Lumsden, and I accompanied Mark and Colette down to this place. There was a 10-acre house down in Kildare, I believe.
Manor House, wasn't it?
Manor House, yeah.
Massive.
And we did 2 nights of vigils, like most haunted.
Yeah.
And but the one thing that sticks out for me on that was that before the cameras were rolling and you were kind of getting things ready to communicate to spirit, so to speak, and a spirit came through, and when you asked him, could you help him, he said, am I dead?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, when people pass over very quickly to spirit, do you want to explain what happens there and why he would turn around and say, am I dead?
Well, look at the film Ghost. Standing there, he runs off, comes back, looks and sees his body on the floor. But he's still alive. Because you are still alive. You simply moved into another existence as such, that's how I'd explain it, really. And
you're more physical. As soon as you go over to the spirit world, you're still kind of more physical, and the longer you stay there, the more you become spirit.
Generally, the idea in the world of spirit is to move more towards the light, what we call God. And in fact, hell is actually separation from God, because you can go to different levels within the world of spirit and work your way up.
Well, people would perceive that the world we're in now is God. Oh, sorry, not God. It's hell.
There's enough of them in this world, isn't there?
No, there is. No, people would perceive where we are now as hell. Because, one thing, again, I know we refer to Dr. Joseph, but a lot of the things he says are very practical. And he said, if you could picture a world, what way would you picture it? And I'm sure we'd all picture a world where there was no disease, there was no hunger, we all had the things that we wanted, and life would be much better. He said, well, that's where we should be. So if we're not there, then we must be in a world like hell, because we're not where we should be.
Well, it's a dense existence, isn't it, sort of thing? And there's all forms of, there's love, there's hate, there's greed, there's jealousy, all forms of negative and positive things. And living through the negative and positive things and surviving is educational.
Also,
it's rather like a school, this earth. You know?
Yeah, well, also I find,
and you've got choices whether to do good or bad, and that's the crux of it.
Well, this is the thing, you see, because psychologically, given, which side you want to go to, we will kind of move to the negative side, because, I mean, if you look at kind of Neanderthal man, the whole idea with Neanderthal man, and this is more speaking from psychology, is that he will take the least path of resistance because it's less energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And evil is normally, or negativity tends to be less energy. So it actually takes more effort to be positive than to be negative. And it's harder. It's harder, and it takes more energy to do positive things. Like, to help people, you have to go and use energy.
And to help people, you have to suffer yourself. You have to go through those experiences to understand, to become more empathic.
I mean, I think some people go through a hard life, and other people don't go through much of a hard life. And there's obviously reasons why that is, and I'm sure we'll find out what that is. But definitely I notice with energy, I notice that it's harder to be good than not be good.
Oh, you suffer.
Yeah.
Especially if you're sensitive, you suffer, and you feel for other people. And sadly, in this world, especially with a lot of politicians and other peoples like that, especially with this coalition government in Britain, absolutely careless. It's worshipping money, materialism, and the more you worship money and materialism, the less empathic you become. You are chained to that way of thought. Now, okay, there's two options when you die. You die and you're nothing, or you die and you go to the world spirit. If you die and you're nothing, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Yeah, so you're out of it, so it's gone, as such. But if you die and go to the world of spirit, there are consequences for what you've done here, recompensation for what you've done upon the earth, good or bad deeds, etc. So my way of, I'm not a betting man, but my way of betting properly would be to do something good, because that is the one existence that will survive after death. Alternatively, there is a non-existence that doesn't really matter, but you've only got two choices.
Well, again,
see what I mean?
Again, it goes back to what Dr. Joseph said about the viability. Are you viable? And it's got to do with service to others and service to self.
Yes.
And the cabal, obviously, is all about greed, power, money, sex, materialism.
And control.
And control, yeah. Exactly. And that's what seems to be happening now with people who are focused on the money and the greed. And our government is a coalition government, and they're the same thing. And even on Facebook today, somebody said, obviously they're kind of woken up to what's going on with the government and the water meters and everything else. And I'm sure you've seen what's going on, Mark, with that over here.
Yeah.
And they said, I don't understand why the government don't get it. And I just said, well, look, they don't have any empathy. And they, with their arrogance, they actually believe that they're doing a good job. But the trouble is, how can somebody who's worth probably hundreds of thousands, if not a few million, turn around and tell somebody who has nothing that we're all in it together and we all have to suffer when they have like a massive bank account? How is that right?
Well, a lot of politicians, including Farage in Britain, are bankers, ex-bankers. How would they ever understand the ordinary person in the street?
Well, they wouldn't.
No, I mean, they just don't care.
Yeah. And I'm referring to our politicians as well as yours, and all the backhanders and the massive salaries they on, and they turn around and go, well, we all have to suffer austerity. And you think, well, how can you suffer austerity with a few $100,000 in the bank account?
Some more
or
than
a few
others,
million, I mean, it's all wrong. You can't have rich people dictating to poor people how they should live. It is it definitely is, Steve.
When these people, let's say for argument's sake, a politician, Mark, who's been a bad boy all his life, he doesn't understand austerity, he doesn't understand poverty because he's rich and he has everything he wants. When we're saying when they go to the spirit world that he may get his comeuppance, then if he does get his comeuppance in the spirit world, what could he expect? Or would it be a case of he would get his comeuppance before he dies? Because a lot of people on their deathbed, they renounce everything they've done and they pray to God, and they suddenly become very spiritual.
Handy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of these money mad people, from what I've experienced through doing trance and spirit rescue, are earthbound. because they think they want to still sit on their pot of gold here on the world, but they can't.
Yeah.
In the world of spirit, you go to a certain level, obviously, further away from the divine light, from God, from love and happiness, etc. And if you're way down with lust for money or whatever, you just find it hard, like a ball and chain around your foot, to move up to the other level.
Mm. Would they go to, do you think, spiritually, would they go to an existence where they will meet similar people?
Yeah.
Or they'll be on a level where everybody else is kind of greedy and selfish.
Like attracts like.
Like attracts like.
So could that be like, say, karma? But, some people do bad on earth and we go, karma will look after them. But karma may not necessarily look after them while they're alive on the earth. It could look after them in the afterlife.
Well, that's what it means by whether in this life or the next, be payback for, what you've done on this world, even in this world or the next world that you're going to in the world of spirit, Make no bones about it, helping people love, like Christ said, do not store your treasures on earth where thieves will break in, where they will rust. Now, what are these treasures? These treasures are helping other people. The good things that you do here, you take with you. That's your reward when you get over there. That's your ticks, your brownie points, as such. Yeah. The negative side is that. And if you're working in darkness, what do you attract?
Darkness.
Darkness. If
like attracts like, yeah.
Yeah, if you're working in light, what do you attract?
Mm.
Yeah. And it's like working with spirit. If you work in light, you attract spirit in light.
Yeah. I think, we talked about karma before, and I know there's people out there that will say, oh, that's New Age mumbo-jumbo, and, karma doesn't exist. Well, if you remember an interview we did with Ralph Ring, who's an expert in natural law, a scientist, who created certain advanced crafts using anti-gravity in the 50s. And we asked Ralph about the whole karmic thing, because, again, natural law means you don't have to force anything. And we asked him about what he thought of karma. And he said, well, yeah, he said, karma is a universal law like gravity. And just because, if you're at the top of a building and you walk off the building, just because you don't believe in gravity doesn't mean you're going to keep walking out. You're going to fall, because gravity doesn't give a monkey's whether you believe it or not. Now, I kind of see karma as, I kind of call it a karma energy boomerang. And if you throw out positive energy, that will come back to you as a positive. Eventually, because like attracts like. What you reap, you sow. Bad, everything's there,
Every action is reaction, cause and effect.
Exactly, cause and effect. So science even kind of backs up the whole karma thing. And sometimes it happens quite quick. Other times it doesn't happen at all. Not for a while, or maybe in the next generation. And we know people say, look at the politicians. How can they do that to people? And I hope karma comes back and bites them on the arse. A lot of people might say that. And it will, because it's the energy they're using in a negative way affecting people, even though they might think they're doing right. I mean, that is kind of, actually, that is a good kind of question.
They're doing right.
If they think they're doing right, is that still a negative or a positive?
Well, it's a negative. If you're giving out negative things, But
if they think they're doing it for, I'm doing it, it's cruel to be kind and all that kind of stuff.
No, I don't think it's that so much. These people are very rich people. They're bankers. They come from Bullington Boys, etc., Eton and things like that. They don't really care.
Yeah.
And it's not the bankers who get clobbered who cause the world crash.
Yeah.
Subprime mortgage and things like that, The people who are clobbered are the people down the bottom.
Yeah, like the guy who steals a loaf of bread to feed his family, he gets caught, he gets sent to jail, but you can actually, but you can actually break the country, which is what the bankers did, and rig LIBOR interest rates and everything else, and they get a slap in the hand or they get a fine, and that's it.
Unless they're in Iceland, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
That's not the shop.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying, they don't really care.
Yeah.
They don't really care. The weight and burden is not put on broader shoulders, it's put on the thinner shoulders down below. The ordinary working person is clobbered. Yeah. That's what's happening in Britain today.
Yeah. And we are, I mean, as I say, Dr. Joseph said, if you go back 20 years, have a look at the way things were 20 years ago, with wars, with everybody struggling. I mean, it wasn't as bad 20 years ago.
No.
I mean, now we have a Taoiseach over here, Enda Kenny, who's probably one of the most hated Taoiseachs in the history of the Irish country. And everywhere he goes, there's protesters. I mean, I don't believe that has ever happened before with a Taoiseach in Ireland, as it is now. I mean, that in itself has to say to you how angry the people are, and the videos that we see on Facebook and everything else. So, 20 years down the line from, 20 years ago, I know I was in a much better position. I'm sure you were, Steve. I'm sure you were, Mark.
Yeah.
So, I have to agree with Dr. Joseph that things are getting worse. And maybe he's right. Maybe the universe will implode. But what kind of stands out with what a lot of people said, James Gilliland, yourself, Dr. Joseph, and a host of other people, like John Anthony Hill as well, is that service to others, that's the proper energy. That's where you need to be.
Imagine a world where everyone helps everyone. I mean, I can go back to the 1960s and remember then people were more like that. And it was a much nicer place to live. But if we actually had a world where people helped each other, think how lovely the world would be.
Yeah.
And we had empathy for people, and we pulled people up, and people were actually starving to death in Britain.
Yeah. Over here it's the same.
People have committed suicide in Britain, disabled people, because of bedroom tax and other penalising things. And they just commit suicide.
Yeah.
The whole of my life, I've never lived under a government where people have done that. By cause of the government. Yeah.
Well, we're the same. They say we have an average 2 suicides a day in Ireland.
I'd say it's more than that.
It's probably more than that now. And it's just, I have to say that the people in government are psychopaths and not sociopaths, because psychopaths kill, and that's what they're doing indirectly. What they're doing is causing suicides.
Yeah. I mean, the sort of person I am that wants to help people, you can't help avoiding or observing what's going on around you. And it makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm talking about politics, and I'm actually here to talk about spiritualism. But being spiritual is actually to help people. It's not going around saying, well, I'm this man sort of thing. It's action helping those in need.
What happens to people who commit suicide regarding spirit?
They are healed in the world of spirit. There's been enough information coming through about that. They're in a situation where they're at the end of their lives, or they feel that they're in the end of their lives and they can't go no further. Something's happened to them, something traumatic. Life isn't worth living. They need help. And in the world of spirit, which is a place of love, they are nursed back mentally to health, good health. And sometimes that's why they take ages to come through a medium to give a message, because they're actually being worked on in the world of spirit in love.
Okay, and again, it's not always. I mean, you can't dial up and ask for a relative to come through.
No.
Just what I kind of say to people is that if you are going for a reading, put the actual request out there to the universe, I suppose, if you want to do that, before you go to the reading, and see what happens.
It's always a good idea to have something, that the person left you behind, on your person for a couple of days, and actually take it in your pocket or something like that. To the reading, because that can actually be a focus point for the spirit person to connect through. Yeah, they know that you've got it,
And obviously, again, I just touch on the subject of people that are in the kind of truth movement who think this is all new age mumbo jumbo. What would you say to them?
Well, mediumship in one form or another has been going on for ages, even since biblical times. The Witch of Endor, for instance. I mean, I know she was a witch, but a lot of witches that I know of are white witches, and they just worship nature and things like that.
And you have people like Mother Shipton, Nostradamus, and a host of other,
Well, Nostradamus was a seer, a person who could predict things, as such, And he actually touched on Hitler, which was Hitler. And I think it was a night in the Golden Cage where the king got killed. He predicted that, and it actually happened, I think
one of his quatrains was Two Towers, which was obviously New York. And a few others. He's very close to the mark of, what he predicted. Now, we've also heard through the centuries, like the Salem witch trials, is that the reason why these women, a lot of the time women, were killed was because they were in tune to and they knew what was going on.
Or they were healers.
Yeah.
The village healer,
Yeah, and this is why they were killed.
Well, also, if you didn't like your neighbour, you go to the witchfinder general and say, she's a she-devil, I see her playing with the devil, just to get her killed and take her property off her, A lot of that did actually happen in those days,
it doesn't surprise me,
Actually evil, were actually happened in those days, you know.
Yeah, no, it just, I remember reading about it.
I'm glad we're more enlightened and can think out of the box these days, to be honest, you know.
Well, I'm glad that doesn't happen, put it that way.
Well, yeah. Maybe it happened somewhere in the world, but thank goodness it's stopped in Europe as such.
Yeah, well, no, there's, as I say, there's people who are on a path of knowledge, which we always say, and some people are further on down the road than others, and maybe it's not their time to actually experience any of this kind of information or experience anything spiritually, maybe in the next life, or maybe in 10 years' time they might come across it. So now their belief system is, because we talk about having a fluid belief system on OYM, and having a fluid belief system is all about not being stuck in a belief, not defending a belief, but keeping an open mind, because what you know today is what you know. Tomorrow you might learn something different that might contradict what you know today. But as of today, this is what you know. But keep it fluid so you don't have to defend anything. Steve?
Yeah, Mark, a lot of people say there's no such thing as a stupid question. I've got one. This just came into my head. Has a spirit ever come through that was had maybe more than one dimension to them, where it was they were kind of two people, where it was a spirit who was reincarnated and then died again? And is that, I mean, I know that's a stupid question, but has that ever happened?
Not to me, no. I mean, I can often get a grandfather from, say, Dad's side start talking, and I'm delivering the message, and the person will say to me, well, that sounds like the other granddad. But what's actually happening there, they're linking together.
Okay. Yeah.
And also those in the world of spirit, when they try to communicate back to us, you know, they need what we call an enabler, someone who's been in the world of spirit and who knows how to contact back to this world, make contact back to this world. So they go with the enabler and talk through the enabler. Does that make sense? Because they are not ready yet to learn how to, you know,
communicate.
So the enabler communicates, like me telling you to tell Steve, you know.
Yeah. How far back have you gone with relatives? Because there is this kind of thing where I've read, I don't know how true it is, but apparently you'd only go back to a grandparent, and because anything after that, the person wouldn't actually know anything about them anyway. Chances are, I don't know.
Well, certainly, you know, people from the past can come through, you know, who are known in history, but any generation that knew them has passed on to the world of spirit themselves, you know, sort of thing. And just by doing research, you can find this person out, you know, that they were actually in your family as such. You know.
Okay, and let's talk about guides now.
Spirit guides, yeah.
Spirit guides, right. Everybody has a spirit guide, apparently.
Quite a few numbers of spirit guides with us, yeah.
Yeah, and what you say, some people turn around and go, oh, I've got 10 guides and I've got 8 guides. What's that all about?
It does, well, you go by the sounds of it. It doesn't really matter how many guides you've got. They're there for a purpose, to do something with you, you know, as such, you know. I mean, for instance, within the physical circle, we have a guide called Joseph. And actually comes through in trance, talking about what spirit are doing on the other side with the energies and things like that. Giving little messages to people within the circle and a few prediction things, you know, as such. But that's assigned, that guide's assigned to the physical circle. We have different guides for the medium circle on the Monday. We have our own spirit guides that work with us, you know. I mean, for instance, my main guide was Titus Numus, a Roman centurion, died in AD 42 with the 8th Legion, I think it was, if I remember rightly. And I call him Sam. Everyone's got a Sam guide, haven't they? You know, just as short, you can call him what you will. But he is the conductor of the orchestra in an analogy way, you know, as such. And there are other guides there for enlightenment, guides there for healing, guides there for your leadership in circle, guides there for this and whatever, you know. And when you reach a certain level, that guide will move away and another guide will take you even higher and further.
Right, okay.
But your main guide stays with you all your life, but there are also guides assigned to development circles as well.
Right, okay. And what's the situation with development circle? Can anybody set one up, or what? How does that work?
They're usually run by an experienced medium, because you have to work with, you're working with energies, you don't know what you're working with sometimes, you know, so there has to be discipline and working in the light only. I mean, for instance, you know, not anyone can go to a circle. I mean, if you've got mental problems, you know, it's best to stay away because you're mixing with things, you know, that you shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly.
In that kind of way. You need to be strong-minded as such. Drugs and alcohol,
don't mix.
Mind-changing things as such. don't mix with spirit.
well, the thing is,
excuse the pun, yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't, yeah. But this is what we've heard, that if you're on drugs and alcohol, it lowers your vibration and opens up the door for negative energies to come in. Yeah. So it's not really...
Bang on, you're correct there, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's not really a good mix there. What would you say to people who feel that they want to develop their ability? I mean, in Ireland here, unfortunately, we don't have spiritual churches or centres, or we have a lack of them, and definitely have a lack of development circles. So I'm not too sure what you could actually recommend for people in Ireland who want to explore this ability. They want to develop it, or else they might want to shut it down because they're saying, "No, things are happening, and I don't really like that." So, I suppose the first thing they should do is go and seek out an experienced, a medium that they can, by word of mouth, rely on. And that's the important thing.
That's the safest route, really. You know. We're lucky in Britain in that, like, there are quite a few mediums around, and some good ones as well. Obviously many of them run good circles as such. They do it in a good, strong, disciplined way, and of course, the tendency is very important. It's not one of these fly-by-night things that you join and get bored with it 2 months later and leave. It takes time. It takes, that time to develop.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And the other thing is, sorry, Steve, just saying there, everybody develops at their own pace.
Correct.
In a circle.
Correct.
And so we have to be very careful. You have to be very careful of spiritual jealousy.
Yeah.
And you should see it as I would call it positive envy. I don't know whether that's right, but...
Jealousy comes from lack of something within yourself.
Yeah. Well, maybe, you see someone, you think, God, they're really good, and I really want to be like them.
But it's not
a jealous thing. It's a kind of,
That's good, but in that way, it's not narcissism and backchatting. Yeah. It's, I want to reach that level.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, because you've got a goal to reach.
Yeah.
As such, and that's what it's all about,
Yeah, and it's about being positive, but understanding that you will develop in the pace that Spirit wants you to
so that you can learn at that pace. Some people go to school and it takes ages for them to pick up English, so they have to have extra lessons and learn slower than the speedy ones, who know English. And also with this as well, if someone is a better medium than me, I would take my hat off to them and say, fantastic.
Yeah.
We're all working equally in the light. You can get better information through your guides and etc. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're great.
Because there is a lot of bitchy jealousy going on as well.
There is in every walk of life, isn't there?
Yeah, I know,
Let's be realistic about this.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, I was just thinking, both of you guys have been involved in this for a long time. And I was just thinking, let's say there's someone listening to this show this evening, Sunday evening, and they decide, or they figure, I've always kind of had something that I think I may be, that could be my destiny. I need to find a circle and develop what I think I have. You guys would know. You could probably list on both hands a list of people in Ireland who they could go to. But for someone who they don't know anything, this is all new information. Do they just go to the internet, go to a search engine, and type in mediums in wherever they are? Is it that easy, or how will they find someone?
Well, first of all, I'll just add my bit, and you can say, personally, I would go to an organisation quicker or first. That would be my first point of call. Now, in the UK, well, you tell me, Mark, what would you do?
Well, we've got the SNU in the United Kingdom, the Great World Spiritualists as well. To be honest, if you don't do nothing, do meditation. Open in that meditation, in the prayer of protection, I'm open to all higher influences and I'm close to all lower influences. Then go into that meditation and try to attune your spirit guides. Doris Stokes never sat in circle. She was a natural and developed it herself, as such sort of thing. But what a lot of us mediums tend to do these days is just attune. And what that means is sitting in silent in a room, hoping with your prayer, and just say to your guide, walk into my aura. Pushing your aura out with your mind, of course, first of all. Now, attune with me, mind to mind. I've started doing that a lot recently, and my mediumship has gone on leaps and bounds with information and accuracy. Sitting in the quietness of a room, say for 10 minutes, and saying to your guide, tune with me, mind to mind.
Okay.
It works.
Well, just going back to the question that Steve said there as well, is that personally I would go for, as Mark said, contact a spiritual organisation.
Yeah.
Because that would be your best bet, because...
That's your first port call.
Would that be... You'd find that on the internet, though, would you?
Yeah, you'd find it. Over here in Ireland now, there's organisations being set up, and there's a number of them, and some of them are linked to the SNU from the UK.
Yeah, Spiritual National Union.
Yeah, and they are beginning to set up. Now, as I say, Oldcastle Spiritual Centre there's loads of information there regarding who you can contact or speak to or put in touch with.
And as we've mentioned as well, Oldcastle Spiritual Centre, they have a Facebook page, so if you're on Facebook, just type it in.
Yeah, just type it in and pop over there, give them a ring, contact them. If they can't help you, they'll be able to point you in the direction of a group or an organisation over here, which is beginning to set up. It's beginning to grow over here, which is great to see. Again, just be very careful. There are, like in all walks of life, there's always bad apples, and there's always people there that will try and take money off vulnerable people. So just be careful. As Mark said, word of mouth is a great thing, because if you get recommendations from 5 or 6 people on one person, then you pretty much can't go wrong.
And also, if you join a circle, suck it and see what it's like. What I mean by that is, do you feel comfortable there? Are you comfortable with the teaching? If you don't, then look around for another circle. It's actually experiencing sitting in with that circle, whether it's for me.
Yeah, but you have to be open-minded as well, I think.
Oh yeah,
you have to be.
Give it a good, good run sort of thing.
Definitely.
As such.
Steve,
just when you were saying there as well, Mark, about people who like doing a little bit of meditation and trying to contact their spirit guides, I have checked. I've actually looked up. And people might say, "Oh, yeah, you're not going to get the answer on the internet." But I did actually find a lot of very good YouTube videos where it could be 10 minutes long, it could be 30 minutes long, where someone, with the aid of, say, some calm background music and just their voice, they will actually teach you how to do that self-meditation and put yourself into that state. And there are a lot of good videos out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it works for you, then yes, do it.
Yeah.
I think it's very important, from my point of view anyway, I think for people to understand the science of meditation. Because I think people have the impression that what you have to do is get in the lotus position and you go, and all this stuff.
You mean you don't?
Yeah, no, I don't. And I think people need to kind of, in reality, it's not like that. I mean, you can meditate in a car while you're waiting for somebody, and to just take 10 minutes and sit there and focus.
Obviously not while driving.
Not while driving, obviously, unless you're in Night Rider, which is a different thing altogether. But yeah, and find out what the science, because there is actually the science behind it regarding the alpha waves, beta waves, delta waves, and how it works, and the frequency you're tuning into. So for me, I think understanding the science of it helped me to understand the benefits of meditation.
Well, also with mediumship, meditation, or attunement, you are tuning into radio spirit, as such, to their frequency. Everything is energy.
Yeah.
Everything is energy, and what you're simply doing is attuning to that energy, attuning to your guide. Mind to mind, as such,
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. And as we say, we know this is a pre-record, and at the moment you're doing platform in Oldcastle at the moment, and
am I?
You are, although you're not, you are.
I am.
I mean, we're going to time travel
I'm
now.
everywhere.
We're time traveling, exactly. But I'm sure people will listen to the show, and they will, parts of it or the information they'll resonate with, and they'll understand it. And the problem is, it's the naysayers that kind of probably affect people. Because I know there's people out there that might want to go and do something about it, but the people around them who don't understand this and just listen to the crap that you get on TV, and the Keith Barrys and the Darren Browns, and they lack confidence in going out and doing something about it, what would you say to them?
Well, test it and find out, It's like all things, we can all have an opinion, a barstool opinion, unless we actually go out and sample it and dip our toe in the water and find out what it's all about, then we won't learn. I mean, it's like the criticism of mediums, what research have these critics done? I mean, I've never been approached or never talked to someone within an audience to learn information to relay back to them in the message later. Most of the time I'm kept in the medium's room, walk straight out onto the platform, and then work with spirit, serve with spirit, and bring this information forward. And
I know sometimes, and this has happened to you, and I feel sorry for you, because what happens is Mark's done platform. Obviously, he's doing it all the time, and he'll get a message through, and he'll pick an individual out, and he'll go da-di-da-di-da-di-da, loads of accurate information, and the person will go no. And then Mark will go, okay, well, I'll leave that with you, and then go to somebody. Yeah. And then at the end of the show, when everybody's kind of filing out of the room, the person comes up and go, you are bang on, that's exactly right, but I didn't want to say it because I felt really embarrassed.
The common one is, I didn't want to say something, but, you know, what you said, it was true, like, and I just remember, oh, yes, that was true as well, but I felt a little bit embarrassed. I thought to myself, you know, And I say, madam, why on earth did you pay to get in this church if not willing to sort of participate in it, you know?
Exactly. And that would drive me, personally, it would drive me mad because...
But once again, you don't force messages down people's throat. You know, if they can't take it or if they don't want a message, you move on to the next person.
But then it looks bad on you, though, you know, kind of...
It's not about me.
Yeah. It's just that, you know, for me, it'd be frustrating. That would be frustrating. But I suppose you're doing it every week. So to you, it's just...
It only becomes an embarrassment if you take things personally.
Yeah.
And if you take things personally, the mediumship is all about you.
Right.
If you don't take things personally, the mediumship is not about you, it's about serving.
Yeah. And you're literally doing it every week. I mean, every week you're it's incredible, the list of churches and centres that you're doing in the UK.
Does it take a lot out of you, Mark?
Yes, definitely. You know, it makes you very tired. But also, doing the physical circle makes you tired because they will pick out one person within the circle, usually the circle leader spirit will, and channel through that person, and it's absolutely exhausting. I mean, a lot of the old mediums in the past developed diabetes, heart conditions and things like that because it actually drained the body.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to slow up as much as I can here and there, you know, but once again, I'm here to serve spirit.
Yeah, but it's not worthwhile putting your health on the line either, you know? If it's taking your energy, so you have to kind of balance it out, you know.
Well, we dive into the swimming pool with enthusiasm, don't we? And we need to really just wade in virtually in the shallow end
before checking the depth of the water. Yeah, exactly.
It's the passion. I'm a very passionate person. My passions are very strong, and in things like mediumship, it's the ethics and the passion that drives me on. You know,
exactly.
Not the ego, but to serve and to help someone. If I've done a good job in a spiritualist church and people will come out afterwards saying that's a fantastic message, bang on, etc., it's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Great.
Now, I know you've had people, you know, clapping and people standing up and all that, and it's nice to get that kind of what would you say? It's nice to get the confirmation that the messages you're putting over are bang on and accurate, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, like I've known you a good few years now, and you're very well grounded because you're well aware of the whole ego thing.
Yeah.
And how can that can really, you know, catch you, and if you're not aware of it, and all of a sudden that, you know, there's certain mediums out there on you know, on the scene at the moment where the ego is completely taken over.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And they've just kind of changed completely. And,
but there are good mediums out there who are honest and, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, you just have to, like anything. Look, you get good plumbers, you get bad plumbers, you get good builders, you get bad builders. It's the same with mediumship. You have to do your research. You have to check it out. Word of mouth, I think, is a good thing. You know.
Yeah, definitely. You know.
Okay, we've reached that time of the interview. Oh, we've one more question from Steve.
No, we don't have a question. No, I just when you were talking earlier about the naysayers, something came into my head, and I just want to throw it out there, that when the Wright brothers had an idea to fly in the sky, there was a lot of naysayers then as well. And look where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, as I say, we're on a path of knowledge.
Yeah.
And maybe the naysayers they haven't reached that point. They haven't got to that stage where they've opened their mind enough to actually do the research or have the experience.
That's why Open Your Mind is here to help them.
That's it. Barrier politicians.
It's definitely, you know, the critic sort of thing. Well, all the good mediums go out and do it to serve, you know. And all across the world, there are many lovely ladies and gentlemen who are going around selflessly serving other people and bringing two worlds together. And love is never severed by death. It's connected stronger through mediumship.
Definitely. Okay, well, Mark, we've reached that time. Brilliant interview, great information.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's people that will get a lot of information from it.
Can I just say hi to my circle members in England, Emma, the two Steves, Andrea, everyone else in my development circles, and God bless you all.
No problem at all. Now, you do have a DVD I know that you released a few years ago, and the content, I think, is very, very relevant. And the reason why I know about this DVD, because I had a hand in helping Mark with it, because at the time, Mark was searching we were looking for information, a guide to all about spiritualism, and just find out information about it at the time.
Yeah.
And we couldn't find anything. We searched Amazon, we did everything, and we couldn't find it. So we said, let's put something together ourselves. And this was back in 2005, wasn't it?
A long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
I'd hear then.
Yeah.
Because you do.
I had teeth then. So it's really more got to do with, and we put this kind of basic DVD together. It's more got to do with content. It's more kind of got to do with, it's less Steven Spielberg and more Paddy Spielberg. But, so you won't get any like special effects or bells and whistles. But the content of it is very poignant to anybody who's interested in spiritualism or being spiritual, involved in circles and energy and all that kind of stuff. Because the one thing that we talk about on it, and again I just want to talk about it, over here in Ireland, people talk about, you hear people in Ireland saying, "Oh, that person gives me a bad vibe." And what we're talking about is, their energy, right, that they're putting out there. And some people say, "Oh, when I go to a certain shopping centre, I come out like a mad, real angry," and they're picking up on people's energy.
Also, if you go into a place, there's things what we call residual energy. If there's been a massive argument in there, that residual energy will stay, and you will pick it up. It's like ghosts, most of the ghosts, so-called ghosts, are residual energy. There's just a time film being replayed of an event. They can't react with you, they can't contact you, they can't talk to you. It's just like a time event being
just a video playing over and over again. Yeah.
Whereas the apparition grandma standing at the end of your bed talking to you, then just disappeared, is the real thing.
And that's the difference between a ghost and a spirit.
Apparition,
Right, okay. Now, as I say, the DVD is available on your website. Do you want to give your website there? www.circleofwhitelight.com. Okay, and the DVD covers everything from, it's good for beginners and even mediums who are been doing it. They might pick up a few things in it as well. And there's a couple of interviews at the end with experienced mediums.
Yes.
Glenda and...
Oh, I've got a name.
Glenda. Oh, I'll have to
Sue.
Glenda and Sue. That's right. Yeah. Steve.
Yeah, and I just want to say, for anyone who is maybe thinking they want to get the DVD, or they don't want to get the DVD, and Alan has it in his hand, I can actually say I have seen the DVD, and it's not going to be something that, it's going to be like trigonometry or something like that. It's something that the layman industry can actually watch and grasp. It's very easy to understand, and as Alan said, it's done in a format, to kind of give you the basics.
There are also some guided meditations coming out soon, which will be available on Circle of White Light website, so please keep an eye open for that. They are very good meditations to actually take you on a spiritual journey.
I just remembered the question here I was asked by somebody. Do you do remote readings or like Skype or phone readings?
Not at the moment, no, because I'm actually too busy at the moment, but eventually, yeah.
Okay, that's on the cards. Right, no problem at all. Well, Mark, again, thanks a lot for coming over and being on the show.
Been a pleasure.
As I say, I know you have a busy few days coming up, and, well, it's jam-packed until you head back on Tuesday, so...
it starts all over again over there then.
And then you go back and do the same thing. Well,
roll on Christmas.
Well, it's great that you're busy anyway, but so if people want to contact you, they can go to the website, circlewhitelight.com, the DVD's there. And for people, I mean, you live in London and you're doing readings, but you're doing the shows as well. They can find out where you're going to be on the website as well.
Yeah, www.circleofwhitelight under events.
Oh, okay, in events. And that's where they'll know the churches and the centres you're going to be in.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, well, that's brilliant. That was Mark. A fantastic interview. Great information. If you need any more information, you can go to the website, circleofwhitelight.com. It's great having Mark on. And we'll go to a bit of music and we'll be back after. Okay, and we're back. That was a little bit of ZZ Top, the short version. And now, for your listening pleasure, we have Kathy Sinnott on the line. And it's a coincidence. We actually got an email during the week
from Joan. Joan spoke of the children's referendum. Simi, that's going to be hitting the court again tomorrow. I actually have a copy in my hand of the One World Chronicle, dated December 2012, and I was only showing it to my daughter a couple of days ago. There's actually an article in that written by Kathy Sinnott called "The Get Out Clause." Now, we were asked to get Kathy on. She is here. I'm going to just bring her straight in, and we're going to maximise the time with Kathy because I would say we've only got 15 minutes. So, Kathy, good evening.
Good evening. Great to talk to you.
Okay, sorry, I'm just watching the levels here. Is everything okay your end? You're not getting any feedback?
Yeah, I'm hearing you just fine.
Perfect. Okay, that little ding tells me everything's okay. Kathy, can you just jump straight into it and tell us about the upcoming court case, please?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what's happening tomorrow. As people know, there was a referendum on so-called children's rights in November 2012, and it was kind of a speed referendum. People didn't see it coming. When the legislation for the referendum was rushed through the Parliament, through the Dáil, we had a 3-week referendum. There was no campaign. It was just yes, yes, yes. And what was interesting about the yes is it had been prepared long before. It was very well financed, both from children's rights groups, from government, etc. And yet the general population didn't even see the referendum coming. Now, the general message in the referendum was that this was about abused and neglected children.
Yeah.
Which was very far from the truth. This was not about abused and neglected children because we already have a constitution that is very strong in that area. However, the government ignores it. They didn't need to change the constitution. They needed to implement it. So this was all artificial, but what the amendment that they were trying to force us to pass very quickly was really about giving control of children in childhood, all children in the country, even the best parents' children in the country, to the state, and that the state alone would decide, the state and whoever they designated, like a HSE, social worker or whatever, they alone would decide the best interest of the child, not the parent, with the benefit of nature's parental bond, child-parent bond.
So sorry, that means that the parent would then be the caregiver and not really the parent.
The parents would be the caregiver, but the state was the one that oversaw the rights of the child, and there were a lot of new rights given to children, like the right to privacy from their parents. And also the state decided what was the best interest of the child. And they could step in if the parent didn't need to do anything. If you remember the wording, the state just had to decide that there might be a problem.
Yeah.
That the parent might not do the best thing for the child. They didn't actually have to do anything wrong. And it also included provision for forced adoption, that the state could adopt a child without parental consent. Okay, so that was what happened. But what happened during the course of the referendum is that the state took our money, over €1 million of our money, published a leaflet which they claimed to be an information leaflet, but which in the McChrystal judgment, a wonderful guy, Mark McChrystal, took the state to court and lost in the High Court, but got a unanimous decision in the Supreme Court that the state was cheating and lying. That, let's not put fancy words on it. In other words, that what they had put was not impartial, was not fair, was basically a yes campaign, and that it was also misleading. There was only one statement that Mark had actually challenged, and that one statement was found to be not true. He could have challenged 20 statements in their campaign. He only challenged one, and so 100%, it turned out it was not true. So you had, once the referendum count was done, there was a very limited time to challenge it. And a woman called Joanna Jordan put in a challenge and said that the result of the referendum, which was a yes vote, was not reliably, it wasn't safe because we couldn't rely on it to be the democratic will of the people because of significant interference by the state. So in other words, people, the state clouded the issues so that people weren't actually able to have a proper referendum. And so the result was not reliable. So we've challenged that. Now, we always wanted to win in the High Court, but we didn't expect to, just as with the McChrystal judgment that it was based on. And we lost a petition and a plenary case in the High Court. And we don't have enough time for me to go through this, but it was 2 cases. In fact, 3 issues were decided in the High Court. The first was that there had been a significant breach, and that was decided in our favor. In other words, we were given leave to petition on the basis that what the government did was very wrong. But then we weren't granted the petition, and then we also took a case against the Referendum Act itself, in that we said it was virtually impossible for a citizen, no matter what the government did, to actually successfully challenge it. And that's unconstitutional, because if we have a right, the right of referenda, the sovereignty of the Irish people, and Article 6 in the Constitution, we have a right to defend it. And if we can't defend it, then we don't have a right at all. Then government can just do what they like. So we lost that in the High Court, which we expected. But we are very, very hopeful for the Supreme Court, because this is the same Supreme Court that gave the positive decision in McChrystal. And it would be very hard to see how they could do the level of criticism they did on the government in the children's rights referendum, and then turn around and say that that kind of misbehavior should have no consequences. So this is the hearing in the Supreme Court starts tomorrow at 10 o'clock. It'll go on for about 4 days. Anyone is welcome to attend. It's very historic, because what we're defending is our right to have fair and free referenda. Yes, it's about the children's rights, but more basically, it's about our right of referenda, not to have it interfered with, and to, fair play. And if we, in fact, if we don't win this, referendums will become increasingly just a joke, a rubber stamp for government, which they were beginning to become anyways.
Yeah, and I mean, this thing now that's going to happen tomorrow, and you say it's going to go on for a couple of days. I know everyone who's listening tonight, and I know everyone who knows about it, they're all going to be behind you. Everyone's going to be supporting you. I mean, let's hope that's enough. But I think from what we've seen recently, Kathy, the way the Irish government are going in the whole fiasco relating to the Irish water, I mean, we've heard before that judges can be bought, and results can be bought as well. Do you reckon that might happen?
Well, no, I don't reckon. We have a fairly solid Supreme Court. Now, what I'm saying by fairly solid, I don't think they're, I'm far more worried when it comes to the High Court. You have new appointees. People aren't sure of their position. Unfortunately, they're often government appointees. We have a fairly solid Supreme Court. It's not to say that they aren't influenced. And in fact, you can see the kind of influence government's bringing to bear. All this week, there have been front page of the Irish Times, basically saying that if this referendum, or if this challenge is, defeated, then we can go ahead and 2,000 children will get a second chance with new families and blah, blah, blah. In other words, trying to pressure the judges in the Supreme Court to give a decision, to give the decision to the state. But this doesn't wash. I mean, it is so surface. Even an article like that in the Irish Times, it's crazy. It's talked about 2,000 children in foster care and how they will be able to have a second chance, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is not, this is the kind of crazy stuff that's going on. 2,000 children in foster care that are not adoptable are because they have parents. They have a relationship with their parents. What the government wants to do is to be able, and they might have brothers and sisters, and often they're very attached to their foster parents who they may have lived with a long time. So this idea that you could pass forced adoption and just sort of take a 7-year-old who's maybe been with their parents, maybe they're in foster care for 3 years, maybe with their parents for 4 years, maybe all 7 years they've had a relationship with their parents, suddenly adopt them out to, a couple or a single or anybody, and suddenly that solves that child's problem. Absolutely crazy stuff. This may be a child with brothers and sisters, and suddenly they get adopted out. There's no right even to know where they are or who they are, what their name is now. They lose all the relationships of their life before. And this is the kind of stuff they're talking about as being a second chance, all these euphemisms. But what we're really talking about is forced adoption, child confiscation, and this is exactly what we're seeing in the UK, and this is exactly the kind of laws that the Irish government is now trying to bring forward. And there's one right now before the Dáil called the Child and Family Relationship Bill, which basically gives the state the right to choose the parents of any child. It's not a given just because you have the child, just because, you're the mom, you're the dad, will not necessarily give you any rights to love and cherish and nourish and take care of that child and protect that child if the Child and Family Relationship Bill is passed. So, there's a lot at stake. The state wants our water, something so basic as our water, and what people have to wake up to is that the same state who wants our water, who has already controlled our bogs, who is controlling so much of our life at this stage, is now wants to control children and childhood. And why? Because that's the future.
Yeah.
People are waking up, people are thinking for themselves, and that frightens the state because we will teach our children, and they want control. And if you're going to control the future, you're going to have to control the children.
Exactly, and we already know that they are they're doing that already through the school system and Agenda 21. They're already controlling them there. Kathy, as Alan always says, and I can't believe I'm saying it as well, I have to keep an eye on the time here because we've 3 minutes to go.
Absolutely.
And I do know, as what you mentioned there, even when the state comes in and the HSE or whoever, child welfare, take children out of the home, there's money involved there too. I heard over in the UK that when they do that, they successfully take a child away from the parents. There's bonuses in there for them as well. So maybe they have bonuses to reach our targets. Yeah,
follow
exactly. Yeah. Kathy, I've 2 questions before I let you go. One came in. One came in earlier, but was asked Kathy if the referendum appeal is totally over, but we've already figured out that it's not over. The second question was from Vin. Vin said, Kathy once told us about the direct literal translation of the 1937 Constitution. He said he has yet to hear you mention it publicly. Can you ask her why that is, please?
Well, the 1930, the Constitution is in Irish.
Yeah.
And what's very, very important is that in so many cases, and the Supreme Court will be very careful to go to the Irish. If there's a dispute over a term, it's the Irish, and it's not the English. And so it's very, very important when you fight a case that you insist that where there's a critical term that you look at the Irish, not the English, because English is at best a poor translation, whereas the Irish, and I'll give you an example. For instance, in the X case, they looked at the English unborn child and they decided, that maybe this didn't include whatever, a child before a certain stage or whatever. But if you look at the Irish, it's very different. It's a very inclusive term. It's a term that indicates any child that has not yet reached birth. Any child. So, it can make a big difference between the Irish and the English, and this applies across the Constitution.
Okay, Kathy, unfortunately time is against us, so can I just ask you to hang on there for one moment, and again, thanks for coming on and giving us your time. Maybe at some stage, after you're successful in the Supreme Court, we will get you back on again, so just stay with us there for one moment, please, Kathy.
Sure, and people should pray for this case.
Absolutely.
It would be great if anybody who could. Okay.
Okay, just hang on the line one moment there, Kathy, please. That was Kathy Sinnott. We do wish her the very best tomorrow in the Supreme case, or the Supreme Court case. Just a couple of things to mention before I go, and that is Mick at Livy Sound FM. That's our good friend Mick. He's going to have Thomas Sheridan on his show tomorrow evening. That's going to be live.livysoundfm.ie from 9 to 10 p.m. And Patrick actually rang in. I meant to mention this at the top of the show. Alan asked me to mention it. But Patrick, one of our regular listeners, rang in during the week, and he has heard that school children are now being offered ID cards. Again, for what reason and what information is going to be stored on these cards, you may bet it's going to be RFID chips. Who knows? Anyway, we'll be back in Studio 2 next week. So until then, I will say sayonara. And I will also point out, as has just been pointed out to me, Alan Laws is on the show next week. That's Alan Laws of the National Citizens Movement. So again, another one in the bag. Right, go on, I'll talk to you all next week. Have a great week, and we'll do it again in 7 days. Take care. Bye-bye.